When a nurse paid for a struggling teen's hospital visit, she had no idea who would show up in the parking lot the next morning. What happened next sparked a national movement and changed thousands of lives forever. Rain slapped the hospital windows like a frustrated customer denied a refund. The storm outside had teeth, but inside, under the hum of fluorescent lights, Nurse Linda Forrester faced something colder, indifference wrapped in policy. She moved through the emergency ward like a soldier in familiar terrain, scrubs rumpled, sneakers soaked through, back aching from 12 hours of triage and thankless resolve. Linda was in her 40s, tough-skinned, soft-eyed, and the kind of nurse who remembered your mother's name long after you'd forgotten hers. 2 decades in this building had made her fluent in 2 languages, quiet compassion and bureaucratic bullshit. Then she saw him, a boy, maybe 16, standing at the check-in desk, dripping wet. His hoodie clung to his frame like it was afraid to let go. One hand gripped a soggy form, stamped with ER ink. The other held a wallet so thin it might as well have been empty air. His name, she'd later learn, was Dante Monroe. But at that moment, all she saw was a kid too proud to flinch and too hollow to hope. The front desk clerk didn't bother with eye contact. Uninsured, it's $87.50 up front for screening. Sorry, that's policy. He might as well have slapped the boy with the receipt. No empathy, no hesitation. Just policy. Dante's shoulders didn't slump. His face didn't crumple. But something in him dimmed, quiet and visible, like a light bulb flickering out. He nodded once and turned, ready to walk back into the rain without another word. Linda stepped forward. "Put it on mine," she said. The clerk blinked, startled out of routine. Seriously?" Linda didn't break stride. "Seriously?" Dante didn't cry, didn't make a scene. He just looked up at her, eyes sunken, tired, uncertain, and whispered a thank you so faint it barely made it through the static buzz of the hallway. Then he was gone, swallowed by the swinging doors to the ER. For a moment, Linda just stood there, hands still cold from the rain, wondering what kind of world let a kid like that show up alone, hungry, soaked to the skin, and still get asked to pay for help. The rest of her shift blurred into the usual ER circus. A toddler who swallowed a Lego, a man who managed to burn his chest making toast shirtless, and someone's drunk uncle convinced his appendix had betrayed him. In that place, chaos was routine, and empathy was optional. By sunrise, Dante was a distant thought, a face among faces, a kid she helped because that's what Linda did, one act of kindness at a time, no matter how broken the system was. Then came 6:03 a.m., shoes squelching from storm water, coffee in one hand, bag slung over the other shoulder. Linda pushed through the staff entrance doors, ready to collapse face first into her pillow, and froze. The staff parking lot, normally a patchwork of faded sedans, dented hatchbacks, and one aggressively rusted Ford truck, was full. But not with hospital cars. It was filled with black limousines, at least a dozen, lined up like they were waiting for a senator's funeral, sleek, polished, silent. And not a single one of them made sense. The staff parking lot looked like it had been hijacked by the Pentagon. Security stood frozen, fingers twitching on their radios. Doctors gawked from the windows. Even Earl, the janitor who usually ignored everything but spilled coffee, paused mid-mop. No red carpet, no cameras. Just nearly 24 black limousines lined up like a silent army. Then a car door opened. Out stepped a man who looked carved from stone. Broad shoulders, steel gray beard, eyes sharp as winter. He scanned the staff like a general on a mission. "I'm looking for Nurse Linda Forrester," he said, voice firm enough to halt a riot. Linda stepped forward. "That's me." He extended his hand. "I'm Franklin Monroe, Secretary of Defense. The boy you helped last night. He's my son." Her breath caught. "I didn't know. He didn't say." Franklin nodded, quieter now. "That's because he ran away, after his mother passed. He didn't want protection. He wanted to disappear." Before she could reply, his team moved. One handed her an envelope, reimbursement. Another gave her a folder with a letter signed by the president. But the real gut punch came next. Franklin turned to the limos. Doors opened. One by one, out stepped people, senators, CEOs, even a famous actor. all there, for her. Every person here, Franklin said, has had a loved one helped by someone like you. We've launched the Florence Fund, a national program to erase student and housing debt for nurses like you, and you, Linda, are the first. She didn't cry, not yet. She just stood there, holding an envelope that suddenly felt like a revolution. 3 days later, the hospital cafeteria looked more like a press conference than a break room. News vans were jammed bumper to bumper outside the entrance. Reporters paced the sidewalks like crows circling roadkill. And somewhere near the salad bar, a camera crew was trying to convince a confused nurse to comment on the Florence nurse phenomenon. Linda's face was everywhere: TV screens, morning headlines, online articles with clickbait titles like the $87 Act that shook Washington. But fame wasn't what she wanted. She didn't care about the praise, the spotlight, or the dozen gift baskets that now cluttered the nurses' lounge. She just wanted to find Dante. That evening, she did. He was sitting alone in the psych ward's family lounge, hunched in a corner chair like he was trying to disappear into the wallpaper, bandage still fresh on his temple, fingers twisting a Rubik's Cube like it might solve more than colors. He looked up and gave a crooked, sheepish smile. "I heard about the Limos," he said, barely above a whisper. Linda stepped inside, arms crossed, a smirk playing on her lips. "I heard you've been skipping breakfast. Again." He shrugged. Didn't feel like being the secretary's kid. "People look at me different when they find out. I didn't think it'd blow back on you." She snorted. "Blow back? Kid, you might have just saved 1,000 nurses' lives." Dante blinked, like the idea hadn't even occurred to him. So Linda sat down and told him the whole thing, how the story had caught fire overnight, how nurses across the country started speaking out, how donations poured in from people who'd never even been in a hospital but said, "It's about damn time," how 3 hospital systems were already replicating the Florence Fund, and how, for the first time in a long while, nurses were being treated like what they were, essential. She watched him slowly absorb it all, his eyes wide and unsure. "You being here," she said quietly, "wasn't a burden, Dante. It was a spark, and look what it started." For a long moment, he said nothing, just stared down at the Rubik's Cube like it held the weight of the world. Then softly, "Do you think I could volunteer here? Just a few hours a week. Nothing crazy." Linda didn't miss a beat. "You'd be perfect." There was no music, no slow clap, just a nurse and a boy in a quiet room, recognizing the start of something bigger than either of them. 2 months later, the ER was just as chaotic. Stretchers lined up, alarms chirping, someone always yelling for more gauze. But something had changed. The nurses were smiling more, the coffee was hot, and actually drinkable. And over in pediatrics, a bright new mural stretched across the wall, cheerful animals flying through the sky, signed by a local teen volunteer. The nameplate read, Dante Monroe. Linda's debt was gone, wiped clean. But what meant more was what she got back without realizing she'd lost it. Hope. That one act of kindness, $87 and some change, had cracked something wide open, and the ripple didn't stop. The limos? They kept showing up, not all at once, but steadily, quietly. Each week, another nurse got their loans erased. Another hospital joined the Florence grant. The parking lot wasn't full of black cars anymore, just people who believed again. People reminded that kindness still had weight. One morning, Linda stood outside the hospital entrance, watching the sunrise bounce off the glass. Dante walked up beside her, clipboard in hand, hoodie sleeves pushed to his elbows. "Think we'll ever see another limo?" he asked. She smiled. "Kid, you're the reason we will." And together, they walked back inside, not for applause, just to keep going, just to keep the spark alive.